Alright, so we will be talking about whole practice versus part practice. So this lab essentially will show a couple differences in part practice and whole practice. Part practice we can describe as something that we would use for more serial tasks that can be kind of split up into different parts, hence the name part practice, whereas whole practice is more useful for continuous tasks, or I should say, used more for those continuous tasks. Um, Different types of practice will have different effects based on what you're doing, what the task is, the setting, um, to obtain a specific learning experience. And this lab is essentially going to assess whether part practice or whole practice was better in learning the juggling skill. The purpose is to pretty much just assess, is part practice or whole practice more efficient to learn how to juggle. It's going to give us some data to use so that we are able to understand what people would consider juggling, either serial or continuous, and what would work best. And so the method that we used, we had two students where one of them did part practice, one did whole practice. Part practice started with a couple different steps. So we had one ball toss and catch, then two ball toss and catch, and then three ball toss, then drop, and then three ball juggling. And so whole practice just did three ball juggling for the entire session, every trial, um, and then each trial was counted as juggling as long as possible until a ball is dropped. The experimenter was counting the number of catches. And so we have some data here. Overall, in the data, this was out of 41 participants. We had, on average, about five, passes, catches, we could say, for part practice, whereas whole practice had six. So we had a whole number in between. So it showed that whole practice had an average of around six, and part practice had an average of five, which would kind of give us a p-value of 0.03. We'll just round that. And so since that p-value is below 0.05, that 5%, then it shows that there is an actual difference here. That it does matter, and that whole practice would actually be better if we had a p-value of something above 5%. We probably wouldn't, we would not be able to infer that. Yeah, maybe it was the person and the setting, but since the p-value was lower than 5%, we can really get past that error margin, and there is a real difference. And so, according to the data, obviously, you can see that whole practice was more efficient in learning how to juggle than part practice. So, juggling, we can consider, once you start, you would consider that a continuous skill. There's no stopping. You're just going until it stops. So this would help provide more evidence towards our hypothesis earlier, which was we expect that whole practice will be more effective in learning to juggle than part practice. And so this just gives us even more data to pile on that in juggling, whole practice is going to be the best way to go about it, because part practice split it up into too many parts from our personal data. And so that is why whole practice works better in juggling than part practice. So yeah.